everyone, welcome to my channel. So today's video is something a little bit different. You might say that it is quite long, but it's actually a compilation of all the times I've spoke about the behavioural activation group that I did under the Newcastle Talking Helps CBT. So behavioural activation is a way of changing your behaviours and the way you think to improve low mood and depression. And I was referred onto this because I was struggling quite bad with my seasonal depression and I was feeling really low. I was feeling really down and hopeless. So I went on this 8-week course. So it's pretty much me after each week, like it was every Tuesday for a while. So it's me directly talking about each weekly class, what I think about it, what I've learned and what I think could be useful for other people, and how I feel about being on the course, because it's very different. Also how I feel about the course and how I feel about being there and the things I'm learning, because the group courses are quite new. I think they only just introduced them in 2018 and I've just finished my course. It's like the 15th of January now, so I started it when it was quite new, and yeah, I thought people might appreciate my experiences, and instead of going through my vlogs and my weekly vlogs and Vlogmas and all that to try and find what I think of it, I thought I would just put all the clips together and make one big huge video. So if anyone wants to see what it was like week by week, or if you're thinking about accessing this kind of therapy, then maybe it could give you some kind of insight on what could be helpful. Or even if you're not thinking about going to therapy and you think some of these techniques could be helpful to you and you want to give them a try at home, then yeah, that could help you as well. So please do stay tuned and I'll go straight into the video now. So therapy was good. I did really enjoy it. Well, I think enjoy is the wrong word. I think I found it useful, and it was definitely really hard to listen to other people's stories and how sad some people were. Obviously I don't really want to discuss other people's stories and lives and the things they were saying, because I just don't think that's a very nice thing to do. I think I would want people to respect my confidentiality and privacy, so I'm not going to do that to others. But yeah, it was definitely quite hard hitting listening to how sad and depressed, hopeless, just really low, how really low that some people feel, and some of their stories and why they feel that way made me feel I'm tearing up a little bit already. I think I find it hard when other people are sad and that's just such a weird thing to say I'm sad because other people are sad, but I do, like, I respond to the way other people feel, so like I have such a connection with the way other people feel. I don't know, I guess like I'm quite empathetic, and I really struggled just to see the faces, even when someone wasn't saying anything particularly bad, like just their face and their expression and the body language, I could see how hurt they were. So that was difficult. And some of the people there have been through a lot, which is so devastating. It is really sad. And I guess I kind of felt a bit of an imposter, like all these people have such strong stories, and I'm here a bit depressed because of the weather and because I've been poorly and because of work stuff. Like, I haven't worked for a bit, but like compared to other people I feel like that's nothing. And I know I shouldn't say that and I shouldn't feel like that, because everyone's emotions, everyone's feelings and everyone's experiences are valid, but I just can't help feel that way about myself sometimes when other people have it worse, and it's a really hard feeling to get rid of, I guess, but I'm getting the help that I need, and that's good. The main thing we discussed in therapy today was the aim of the course. It's very much an outside in approach rather than inside out. So rather than taking like medication and looking at the inside of us, it's very much like, what can we do on the outside? What behaviours are we doing that is not just causing the depression but making it last longer, like making it like not go away. Sorry for my squeaky chair. What behaviours are we doing that maybe isn't helping, and how can we change them? So there was like a chart thing, basically like an event or something has happened to create this change in thinking and behaviour. So identifying what it could have been. You might not even know, like sometimes people have been depressed for years and years and years and they can't even remember what might have triggered it. It might be lots of things that have triggered it. If you're like me and it comes and goes, there might be different things in different periods of time that can affect it. So identifying what it could be, and then what do you do that is a, well, what did they say? It's a short-term rewarding behaviour that helps in the moment but doesn't actually help your depression long term. It might actually make it worse. So a good example that directly affects me is on a morning, because I don't sleep well, I'm always tired, I have insomnia, probably linked to the depression. So on a morning I find it really hard to get up, and in that moment that's too much effort, it's too hard to get up, and it's a classic symptom of depression is not wanting to get up on a morning. So in that moment it feels better, it feels good, and it feels safe to stay in bed longer. And for someone like me who doesn't actually have an awful lot of purpose for getting up because I'm not working properly at the moment, and well, I haven't had an employed job since 2017, I think. Like I was off work for a long time on the sick, and now I'm going self-employed, so my working pattern's quite sporadic. I don't have like a set working pattern, and quite often I go a long time without work at the moment, like a few days to a week. 2 weeks was the most I went without any work at the moment. So I don't necessarily have like a purpose to get up on a morning, so it's easier. Sorry, I've got a bit of a runny nose. I've not long been in with the dogs, so I've been out in the cold. So yeah, like, and in that moment it's easier to stay in bed, and while that behaviour that I'm doing out of habit now feels better in the moment, later on it doesn't help. You might feel guilty that you've wasted the day, which I do, and then it builds a bad habit, and overall it doesn't help your depression because you're not getting up, you're not doing things, you're not productive, you're not feeling better in the long run. So it's about taking those behaviours that are short-term rewarding, not long-term benefits, and changing them. And they've said that it's hard to do it because a lot of the time it is habit, and it can be hard for people. Like, it seems so silly. I'm not saying silly that, oh, I can't get up on a morning, but it is really hard when you're depressed. It is so much effort to get up. It's so much effort to go in the shower. It's effort to go and get breakfast. It's effort to walk the dogs, for example. I find it so hard just to make myself go out on days when I have really bad days. And the other thing that I've been struggling with is overeating or binge eating, because in the moment it feels better, but then long term it's not good. I mean, I have gained a lot of weight partially because of steroid use and overeating, and that is another habit I need to kick, that overeating when depressed isn't good for you. As much as you really want to do it, you need that sugar kick, that chocolate kick that gives you a higher dose of serotonin, and yeah. So there are definite things that I need to work on. They gave us some homework. We've got like a behaviour chart that's got morning, afternoon, evening on it, and then we need to write what we've done and how it made us feel, like a one word, how it made us feel, and then rate it out of 10 of how intense that feeling is. And everyone else like works and stuff, and I was a bit like, but what if we like literally do nothing? Because I do find on quite a few days I do nothing. Like, it comes and goes, like my busy days come and go. So like this week, for example, I don't actually have any appointments booked in this week. I have some at the end of November, but other than today, I don't have anything to do all week. The only day I'm doing something is Saturday, and if I don't have to do anything, I don't do anything because it's easier, and it's hard. I feel like I'm just spiraling in what I'm saying now, but hopefully you'll understand what I mean. But yeah, back to the chart. Basically, we've got to say like what we were doing. Even if it's nothing, she said there's no such thing as nothing if you're just sitting watching telly. Even if you just, there's nothing on in your room, and if it is for a morning, for example, and you just laid in your bed, like what are you doing when you laid there? Are you thinking about something? Are you on your phone? Are you looking at something? Are you worrying about something? Yeah, she said write down stuff like that, and trying to identify the short-term behaviours that you're doing that could be changed to improve your life for the better and hopefully make depression more manageable and make me feel better. Sorry, I know I definitely went on about that for far too long. I'm also not usually that great at explaining things. Like, I have it in my head, but I can't always get it out in effective words, I guess. So I hope you understand what I was trying to say there. Today I'm talking about week 2 of CBT, and it was very interesting. We kind of covered some of the things we did last week with regards to those short-term behaviours that we do that don't have long-term benefits and perhaps even make our depression worse because they're not very good behaviours to do. Like, they don't help. And so we spoke about that, and we kept a log every week. I think I spoke about it last week, that we had to talk about what we were doing morning, afternoon, evening, and rate it as a feeling out of 10. And through doing that, people were able to see what time of the day was maybe worse for them, what they were doing that might be making them feel worse. And for me, a definite trigger is on a morning, and it seemed to be like a running thing, and the therapist did say that it's a very common thing for the morning to be a very hard struggle or milestone to get past in the day. Not milestone, that's the wrong word. A hard like hump to get over, because a recurring issue with most people with depression is that they don't sleep, or they have disturbed sleep, insomnia and things like that, so they are of course going to be more tired on a morning, and getting into that slump of, or a habit of laying in bed a bit longer, not getting up on a morning, not wanting to get up, it's hard to overcome that. So one of my goals for the next week is to just set an alarm for half an hour earlier than I would usually get up, and that's just for this week, and then I can slowly build on that, rather than one day just going, right, I'm going to get up at 7 today, because that is quite a hard thing to do for someone who's in a habit, someone who's depressed, someone who's exhausted, to just randomly start getting up early. So she said it would be good to slowly do it instead, and then it's more realistic, it's more achievable, and when you're able to get up a little bit earlier, you feel better, rather than having an alarm set for extremely early, much earlier than you used to, and then not feeling like you're able to get up. So I thought that was really helpful for me. Fingers crossed I can do it, because I hate feeling like I've wasted the day. And that's another thing as well, is she said that sometimes at the time when you're laid in bed you feel comfortable, you feel cozy, but then later on you feel guilty. Like, I feel guilty that I've slept in and done nothing. So that was one of my goals, and it's basically about replacing these behaviours that we do that might make us feel better in the moment, but they're not good long term, so slowly replacing them with better, more positive, more rewarding behaviours that maybe might feel difficult to start with, but when we get into a habit of doing it, the long-term benefits are far better. The other thing is, this was something I set myself that I spoke to her about, and she feels like it could be a good thing, because I used to be an active person. I used to be very like out there, going on walks all the time, doing things all the time with my dogs, and I miss being that person, and that is a goal of mine to achieve again, is to become that active, dog loving, outgoing, like outdoor loving person again. So my goal for the next week is to just go on a nice walk around the block, and I know that seems silly to just go for a walk around the block, but it could help me a lot. So those are my 2 things to do for the next week. And the other thing I also thought would help is, because another value that I have is being social, and also just spending time with loved ones. So I want to do like at least one activity a week, even if it's just a little free thing, with either Eric or a friend or someone important to me. So that's another thing. They also talked about the fact that it's easy for someone to say depression can be solved by doing things every day, exercise, socializing, just doing things to make yourself feel better. But there are some real barriers to people doing that. For example, money. Not everyone can afford to even just go for a coffee with their friends. Especially like a lot of people with depression have depression as an underlying cause from something else, like other health issues or other kind of like issues in their life that might be stopping them from being able to do things. Like health, for example, is one of them. That would have been something in the past that affected me, not so much anymore. But yeah, and also that different people have different values and different things that are important to them. So for example, exercise and going for a run every day might be really important to one person because they really value their health, they really value their physical appearance or their physical health and stuff like that. But for other people, that's not a value to them. They have other values, and so exercise and every day isn't a motivation. Like they're not motivated to do it. So there was like it's non-exhaustive, obviously. Like there's so many things that can be valuable to each individual person, but there's like a little list, and some of the things were family, social life, hobbies, arts and culture, creativity, career, being a parent, like things like that, or like personal growth, education. All these things can be valuable to someone, and it's about finding the things that you value as a person and working on them rather than having this blanket approach to depression. Like if you just tell someone, well, you need to exercise and go to the gym every day, you need to do this every day and then you'll feel better, when actually like that might not be something that they value. So that was really interesting. I really liked that they're doing a more individual approach. Even though it's a group session, we're all working on individual things along the way, which I'm definitely finding really helpful, because over the past year, you might have seen in my vlogs that I'm on and off at the gym. I have been on and off at the gym because I always feel like I need to go to the gym. That's something that people do. I need to exercise, I need to work out, but I never keep it up. And that's why I'm just not motivated to do it, because I don't find it valuable to me as a person. There are so many other things that are of value to me. So yeah, it just makes sense and it's clicking. And I'm hoping that the next week will be better for me with implementing these small achievable changes. That's another thing that they really kept trying to like reiterate, is that they need to be achievable. Start small, work your way up to get better. I really liked it this week. I feel much better from leaving the class. I feel like I want to do better, so hopefully I can share this journey with other people so that they might seek help if they need it, or even try this group CBT class, because I was really wary at first, and so far it's only the second week and already I feel like I'm getting something from it. So yeah, that was my experience today. I had week 3 of my CBT. We reflected on last week and how the small changes that we were implementing have helped us. So for me, it was setting an alarm earlier, getting up earlier during the day so I don't feel as unmotivated on a morning, and going out for a walk, and just generally trying to be more social because that's something that I value. I did have a good week. I really do feel like it made a difference. If the colour of my face is changing, it's because I'm sitting in front of my screens, and my wallpapers are on like a, what's the word? They like, my wallpapers like change every now and then, and they change colour, so the reflection of my face might change. So this week we spoke about behaviours that are positively reinforced. So positive reinforcement is when you do something and something good happens afterwards, or you feel good afterwards, and that encourages that behaviour to happen more. And then we spoke about negative reinforcement. So negative reinforcement is when something happens and it's not desirable, you don't enjoy it, it's not a good thing, like it's something negative that causes you to stop doing something, or to remove something, or to stop a behaviour. And that reinforces that. So an example is, I'm going to take the example off the PowerPoint that they've given us. So an example of positive reinforcement is you receive a good feeling or support after talking with a friend, so you are more likely to talk with that friend again. That was positive reinforcement. An example of negative reinforcement is staying in bed and ignoring phone calls to avoid the effort and imagined shame of speaking to people. So this is a short-term relief, and it takes away that negative feeling, but it's only short-term. Like, it's like we were talking about last week, short-term behaviours that don't help with the depression long-term actually could potentially make it worse, as opposed to introducing behaviours that maybe have a short-term cost. Maybe it's harder to get up in the morning, but long-term it makes things better. If that makes sense. I feel like I'm talking really fast. I should slow down. And my squeaky chair is annoying as always. I do apologise. We also talked about functional analysis, which is where you basically like break down your behaviours and try to understand why you do certain behaviours. This freaking chair. Yeah, you break down your behaviours, try to understand why you do certain things. Are you doing a behaviour to avoid something, or are you doing a behaviour to improve how you feel? The theme of this week was basically to break down all of our behaviours, find out why we're doing it, what keeps us doing that as a repeated behaviour, like what motivates us to do it more, and is that behaviour helpful? And the way we break it down is there was like an acronym, which is ABC. So A is, they had a really weird word. Basically A is a trigger, but to make it an A they called it a antecedent or antecedent. I'm not sure how you say that word, but basically A is the trigger, what has triggered the following behaviour. B is the behaviour, and C is the consequence, i.e. the feeling. So an example of this that they gave us, the trigger, alarm goes off 7:30 AM, you're very tired, you feel exhausted. B is what follows that, so what behaviour did you do following that? A good example of someone with depression might be that they want to stay in bed. That's their short-term behaviour that makes them feel better in the short term. So they stay in bed, and a consequence of that is that they might feel some sort of short-term relief, but long-term, for me in particular, I feel guilty, I feel like I've wasted the day, I start to kind of ruminate in my own mind, going over things, and then sometimes that consequence can also be a trigger for the next behaviour. So because I feel really shit that I've stayed in bed, I then, like, my next behaviour is that I'm depressed, and so I just don't want to get up at all. I just stay in bed for hours, and then it can kind of go on like that. So if you think of behaviours, this bloody chair, if you think of behaviours in that way, in that kind of format, like A, B, C, trigger, what behaviour did you do, what was the consequence of that, and if you start to remove these behaviours that create negative consequences and therefore make your depression worse, make you feel worse, just in general give you worsened symptoms. Pardon me, that was a big burp, I've just had a bottle of Coke. This week it's about interrupting those patterns of behaviour. So on a morning, A, trigger, you wake up, you're tired and exhausted, you want to stay in bed, but are you going to? No. It's a short-term cost, it might be hard and it might be a lot of effort to get up, but you are gonna damn well force your ass to get up on that morning. You might feel it might be really hard, but the consequence after that is actually positive. For me, I feel better, I feel like I'm achieving something, I'm going to do something today, I am up, I am showered, I've brushed my teeth, I've had breakfast, and my day is ready to begin. So that's the kind of process that we're talking about today. So yeah, it's super interesting. That was pretty much the focus of today, and our homework for next week is to, alongside the things we implemented last week, those behaviours that we wanted to introduce, is to start thinking about our behaviours as a process. Why do we do certain things? What's the consequences of doing them? And try to replace, like, those behaviours that are negative reinforcement, so we're avoiding something. For example, on a morning, if you call in sick at work, you're actually avoiding doing something in that instance, and replacing those behaviours, those negative reinforcing behaviours, with positive reinforcing behaviours. So a short-term cost could be like it's exhausting getting up early, but it actually made you feel better afterwards. So it rewards you, like it's positively reinforcement. You felt good afterwards, so you're more likely to want to do it, and it's just about breaking that cycle. And yeah, it was just super interesting. I really enjoyed it. As you can tell, I'm like a bit peppy, like I feel motivated and I want to make these changes in my life. The moral of my story today welcome to Storytime with Becca. I've been talking for ages, I'm so sorry. Basically, is if you don't feel like waking up early, go against that urge, go against that feeling, because just because you don't feel like doing it in that moment doesn't mean it's not good for you. Short-term cost, long-term benefit is one of the most important things that we've been talking about today. So yeah, that's worked for me last week, and I think hopefully it should continue to work, and I'm kind of excited to get my life back on track now. Oh, quickly as well, the other things they were talking about is because obviously last week we spoke about making goals and things that we want to do achievable and realistic. So if you're thinking of something that you want to achieve, instead of just going, well, I can't do that, first kind of imagine you're in a room full of people and people are shouting ideas at you of ways you could possibly overcome it before you outrule it. So rather than having a I can't do it attitude, think of how could I get to this? Are there any other options to do this in a different way? And that could stop people from just being like, I suppose, a bit negative and just being like, oh well, I can't do this, so I'm just not going to do it. So I hope you guys can see this, but this was like pretty much the flowchart. Like, you can probably pause the screen on this, but yeah, trigger, behaviour, consequence. Interrupt them with more positively reinforcing behaviours as opposed to doing something to avoid something. Yeah, super interesting. My screen's just changed again up there, which is why my colour has changed. So yeah, I'm feeling a lot more hopeful this week. Also, I did the I think it's PHQ. It's like a way that they kind of can see how severe your depression is, and my depression was 17 for the last like however long it's been. And it's actually dropped down to 7 in the last week. But I did also have like an unusually busy week, and when I'm more productive I do feel better. So we'll see what the next few weeks are like, because I've got a couple of weeks that are a bit more quiet. So maybe hopefully I can still keep up these like positive behaviours. So we kind of reviewed how the week before had gone for us, and how implementing those, because we were doing that whole like replacing negative reinforcing behaviours with positive reinforcing ones, and how that had helped us, whether there were some things that maybe weren't so helpful, so we need to think of a different way to do it. And this week it was more about building on top of that, and we talked about the trap or track, or was it track or trap? One second, let me check. So yeah, we were talking about the trap or track kind of model of behaviour, and it's quite similar to the flowchart that we looked at last week, but after we've identified a triggering behaviour, like the ABC, like the trigger, the behaviour and a consequence, instead of that behaviour that is negatively reinforcing, instead of going down that what's called a trap into negative behaviours, what's an alternative we can do? So it's like downwards is like trap, upwards is track. So building a track of better behaviours to make us more positive, help us do more positive reinforcing behaviours, and it was really interesting. Like I said, we didn't build on as much as we have done in previous weeks, so I don't have an awful lot of new stuff to tell you, but I do have this to show you. So if you can see this, I've kind of put in a few ideas, so I'll hold it up to the camera so you can pause it if you really want to, and you can look at it later. So yeah, like the flowchart last week, it's like trigger, behaviour, consequence, so whether there's a short-term consequence or a long-term consequence. And we need to change, like I've spoke about in previous weeks, short-term consequences that have better long-term consequences are better for us, rather than doing a short-term thing that makes us feel better but in the long term makes our depression worse. So it's all kind of linking everything together, and it's really interesting, and it's about building this track pattern of behaviours to make us feel better, I would hope. So it's like trigger. What is happening? What is the situation? And my example is like mornings are really hard for me, sleeping in, staying in the house, social media, like I can't get out of this trap that then makes me feel guilty, then makes me feel depressed, then ruins my day, makes me not want to do anything, makes me unproductive, etc, etc, etc.
etc.
So instead of going into those negative reinforcing behaviours or avoiding behaviours or those things like staying in bed a little bit longer, like laying on my phone for a bit, in the moment it feels better, but then I feel guilty, then I feel more depressed that I'm wasting the morning, it feels like I'm not achieving anything, not doing anything. So instead of doing that, what's an avoidance, what's an alternative coping strategy or behaviour that I could do instead? What are the short-term consequences? We need to make these short-term consequences manageable. So another example they spoke about today was if a friend has invited you out to a group lunch with everyone or a night out, your instant reaction is like anxiety, makes me feel uncomfortable, makes me feel awkward, and so you might text them and say, I'm really sorry but I can't come anymore, because you're avoiding those feelings. And in the moment it might be like, right, oh, I'm so relieved I don't have to go anymore, but then later on there's long-term consequences, like you might feel like you're not socializing much, you might feel more isolated, you might feel more depressed that you're not going out and seeing anyone, you might feel like you've got less friends to reach out to because you're not seeing friends. Let me just move this camera up a bit. So that's a good example of like what we need to avoid, like what we need to prevent from us, like ourselves, from doing. So instead of doing that instant cancelling on a friend, as an example, what's an alternative coping mechanism you can do? Clearly going out with them is too much for you, that's why you did that. So instead maybe you can text your friend saying, oh, I'm unavailable on this date, but let's have one friend meet up for coffee or something, and then it's more manageable. You might still feel a little bit anxious, but it's much more easier to overcome than the other one before. So you're still taking steps to get to there, but it's just in more manageable little bite-sized chunks, I guess. So yeah, for me, I found just getting up earlier suddenly, because I spoke about this last week, but like I had like a jolt of like a change of routine, because there was one morning where I got up at 6 o'clock, and then for a few days my natural body cycle woke me up at 9, and then I slowly started to like sink back into lying in too late, and that was probably because I did it too quickly to myself, and it wasn't manageable, and it wasn't something that was easy for me to like, yeah, I can do that, I'm done now. It was a big change, so instead of doing little changes for myself, just half an hour earlier alarm, which I know I mentioned before, but like circumstances at the time, I was busy and things changed. Like a half an hour early alarm, which I'm gonna do. Instead of sitting on my phone for ages, I'm gonna put my phone across the other side of the room and get up straight away and go in the shower, because after a shower I usually feel a lot more awake and ready for the day. And then I'm less likely to put my dirty pyjamas back on, and I'm more likely to put some clean clothes on. Therefore I'm already dressed for the day, and I'm already dressed, so I'm more likely to get up and do something. And it's kind of like a snowball effect, where usually previous or my old behaviours would be a snowball effect in a much more negative way. So I would like lay in, and then I would feel guilty, and then I would be less likely to do things, and then I wouldn't be ready for the day, and then I would waste hours, and then I would feel like there's not enough time to do something, and that would snowball that way. I'm trying to get my behaviours to snowball in a more positive way. Another good idea that they had today is to set a to-do list, where not even so much for like a day, like if you give yourself too much to do, you're just going to procrastinate, especially if you're not used to doing as many things. So even setting a to-do list for the week and then saying, well, I'm going to tick at least one thing off of this to-do list today, or 2 things, and then reward yourself. I suppose it's kind of like having a dog, you're just like constantly rewarding yourself for doing positive behaviours, so you're more likely to do them. So yeah, that was our week at CBT. I'm feeling good. I'm not sure how I feel this week. I feel like I didn't learn an awful lot more this week. It was more a different way to word last week, I guess, or at least that's how it came across to me. I'm not sure, but I did get some good ideas from other people in the class to kind of help me, and I spoke to other people and tried to give advice as well. I'm not very good at it, but I did try. And it's just quite nice. I like the group environment. I like that you can talk to like-minded people who feel the same way as you, as opposed to just in a room one-to-one with a psychiatrist who Yeah, they've been trained in that, but they're not experiencing the same things as you, or even similar things as you. So yeah, it feels good in a group session. So that was today. Hope you enjoyed my little TED talk with Becca. So today we were talking about ruminating behaviours, thoughts, and how they impact on depression. So I'm looking at the notes I've been making on the PowerPoint that they gave us, and it just kind of helps me take it in as well, which is why I quite like talking about it every week. We thought about thinking as a behaviour and how our thinking can impact on how we feel, and what is a helpful way of thinking or thought process and what is an unhelpful thought process. We discussed how the way we think can act as like a barrier to improving our depression or feeling better or making changes and doing things. Some of the things that they mentioned today were things like worrying, like what if, worst case scenarios, what if this happens, what am I going to do if this happens, that sort of thing. Being self-critical was another thought process. So I'm a failure, no one likes me, that kind of thing, like just judging yourself, kind of. Another one was negative predictions, so this is only going to end badly, I can't do this, and that sort of thing. Rumination, so constantly going, why me, why is this happening, why am I doing this, why can't I fix this, and just going over and over with like why questions. And obviously suicidal thoughts can be like a thought process that really impact on how we feel and what we do. So there were two of these, well, there were three of these that really stuck out to me and I know directly affect me, and that was definitely worrying. I am a massive worrier, I over exaggerate everything, I always think of a worst case scenario. And yeah, that really impacts me. That gives me great anxiety. It makes me feel like shit. The other one was being self-critical. I always criticize myself, and I think that's something that's come from my childhood and from like past trauma. So I always criticize the things I'm doing, why I do certain things. I always worry that they don't like me, no one likes me. As soon as it said no one likes me on the street, I was like, that is me. I always feel like no one likes me. I always feel like I've got no friends. I always feel like everyone kind of has some kind of ulterior motive to talk to me or want to be my friend, not because they actually just want to be a friend to me. And the other one that definitely resonated with me was the rumination, the whole why this, why are they doing this, why is this person saying this, why do people not like me, why am I doing this? And I definitely like go round and round and round in my head, spiral out of control, and then by the end of it I feel miserable. And so the way they kind of described it was, think of it as you've got a pile of dirty washing and your washing machine is broken. You're going to put that dirty washing in the washing machine, it's going to spin around all over the place, and then it's going to come back out dirty again. And that's kind of what these faulty thinking processes are like. You've got these negative thoughts, these unhelpful thoughts, they go round and round and round in your head, and then they come out the same. You haven't really got any answers, you haven't got any kind of action plan of what you're going to do and how you're going to make it better, because you're never really going to get the answers to those questions. So they asked us to think about what some of our triggers might be, what causes us to think in that way, what kind of like starts it off. We could look back on our like weekly log that we've been keeping each week of what we've been doing and how we felt. And we were able to see what kind of maybe triggers this kind of thought process. I mean, definitely I resonated with a few of them, and I've been able to identify my triggers. I'm not gonna like go through them in depth on this because they are quite personal, but one of them I will talk about is boredom. As soon as I'm not doing something productive, my mind goes straight to, I'm not achieving what I want to achieve, I'm not doing the things that I want to be doing, I'm not doing as well as other people are doing. And yeah, that's one of the things that I can think of that I do. And we need to think about to a more realistic thought process. Like if you want to think of, well, anything really, when you want to like when you have a question, you normally weigh things up, you think of pros and cons, you come up with a solution or a plan to it. But with these rumination thoughts, that doesn't happen. One of the things they recommended was to stop asking why questions because they are not helpful. Start saying, how is this making me feel, and what am I going to do about it that will make me feel better and that will be helpful for me. So yeah, I found that really useful. I really liked when they said that, because for me that just kind of clicked, and it helped a lot. We don't need to challenge every single unhelpful thought. Sometimes we just don't need to engage with them at all. Sometimes we just don't need to encourage it at all, just not think about it, which I know is easier said than done, but not every question needs an answer. And I thought that, I don't know, like saying this back now, it seems like so much common sense, but when you're spiraling like this, you just don't think of these things. So the point of today was to recognize when we are ruminating and spiraling, when these unhelpful thoughts kind of start to go round and round, and start to think of an alternative way around it. Similar to the whole ABC, trigger, behaviour and consequence thing, but with thinking and thought processes. So it's been super interesting today. So here's a little example here that they've put in. I'm going to leave it there for you to pause it and read it if you want, but that's just an example of like the ABC of rumination. Another thing I kind of, I guess, had an epiphany of today, which I guess I already knew, but I just kept pushing it down or didn't want to think about it. I often hold, I guess now I realise, but they are very unrealistic expectations and views for other people. And I can control what I do, I can control what I think and what I feel, but I can't control what other people do and what other people think and how other people act. And one of my big triggers is when someone, how do I word this? I don't want to give away like too much because it involves other people in my life, but when someone does something that kind of negatively impacts me, it's more about what I do after that. What am I going to do to make myself feel better? And what am I going to do to stop this from impacting me in such a negative way, rather than thinking, why is this person like this? Why does this person not care? Why is this person unpleasant? Why is this person not being nice? At the end of the day, I am never going to get answers to those questions. We never have control over other people, and there's nothing we can do about that. And there's no point ruminating over it. And at the end of the day, most people are shit. Most people are selfish. Most people do things for themselves, and most people are human beings and make mistakes. And there is not a single thing I can do about that. I can just focus on myself, my own well-being and my own thoughts and feelings. So instead of sitting here and thinking, why is this happening to me? Why does this person not care about me? And quite often I kind of compare people to what I think and feel, and they may not have the same values as me. It may be like, I don't know, sometimes I'm kind of like, why does this person not care the way that I care? Why is this person, like, often I'll be like, why is this person not thinking the things that I'm thinking? And I need to stop comparing people to what I think and feel, because everyone has different values and things that they think are important to them. And that's true as well. And I kind of already knew this, but I guess I just didn't really want to admit that I can't make other people care the way that I care. I can't make other people like me. I can't make other people want to be around me. I can't make other people want to spend time with me. And all I can do is just focus on making myself happy and being around the people that clearly show that they want to be around me and clearly show that they care about me. So instead of sitting here and going, why, and holding other people to unrealistic high expectations based off of my values and feelings, I need to be thinking, okay, this happened, how is this making me feel? What can I do to improve how I feel? And what can I do to improve it from next time? Sometimes that can be, because sometimes you can't just like cut everyone out of your life. Sometimes you can, but not all the time. So sometimes the person who's affecting you is someone who has to be in your life for whatever reason. So what can you do after interacting with that person to make yourself feel better? Is there any kind of topics and conversations you can avoid with that person? Is there anything you can do maybe is to distract yourself from ruminating after interacting with this person? Yeah, things like that. I hope I'm making enough sense. I feel like I've been talking, yeah, I've been talking for 15 minutes. So I'm gonna have to really cut this down. So yeah, so it's kind of like the trap or track that we did last week, but this time with thinking. So what is a trap? What is a trigger that causes this ruminating thought process? And how do you think, and then how do you behave afterwards? Instead of going down this trap of it makes you feel bad, it makes you feel depressed, it makes you feel sad, it makes you feel like shit basically. What can you do after this trigger? Or is there a way to avoid this trigger as well? Sometimes that's a good thing as well. But yeah, what can you do instead of going down this trap of ruminating and unhelpful thoughts? What can you do instead of that? So we thought about how this would work for us individually based off of the things we've discussed in previous sessions and how we've been tracking our mood and our activities in our like daily log. And yeah, I've definitely come up with some things for me personally. I'm not going to say these out loud because it does involve other people that I know, whether they're close or not. Not everyone that is a trigger for me is very close to me, but there are people that I sometimes have to interact with and I don't have a choice in that. But yeah, it was super interesting. I kind of want to say I enjoyed this week. It's not that I enjoy it, it's more that I'm actually finding it really useful and really helpful. And I guess some of the things that I kind of already knew but didn't want to admit, or I didn't know enough about, are kind of clicking, and I'm like, I do this and now I know what I can do to improve it. So yeah, that was this week at CBT. Unfortunately next week it's not on, they're having a week break, but it will be on the following week and I will still be vlogging it, of course. It was week 6 and I feel like I learned a lot, not so much knowledge wise but more about myself and some of the things I do unintentionally, or well, not unintentionally, that's the wrong word, more like I know I'm doing it but I find it hard to stop. So yeah, today we did a lot about like mindfulness, how much of our time is spent being mindful in the present and what we're doing right now in the activity we're doing or whatever we're experiencing in that moment, or how much does our mind wander off into worrying about different things or thinking about different things and ruminating. So it was like building on from last week where we did about rumination behaviors and things like that. So the main thing was like whether we're being like mindful or mindful, if that makes sense. And how it takes practice to really pay attention to what's happening in front of us, to stop our mind from wandering off and ruminating and going into this cycle where it's like dirty laundry in a washing machine, like we discussed last week. And also how it's okay to feel sad and worried and anxious, and it's okay to sometimes have our mind wander off down that kind of path, and it's okay to occasionally worry about things, and there's no point going over and over about it in your mind. You can have a bit of worry and then come back to the present moment, and that's normal. That's a normal thing to do. It's what pretty much every single human being does. They kind of compared a human mind to a pen of puppies and how it's kind of bedlam and these puppies are off doing loads of different things, they're all distracted, and it's all about teaching those puppies to come back, get them in a line, sit them down, reward them for it gently, like be positive, and every now and then one puppy might stray off, but gently bring it back, gently remind it to come back. And that's what it's like in the human mind, I guess. There was a book recommendation from another member in the group, which I think I'm definitely going to buy, and it was called, hold on, I wrote it down. It's called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. So I'm going to be buying that. Maybe someone else might find that interesting as well. But yeah, it's about how to stop your mind from worrying about what other people are doing, thinking about what other people are thinking, and just focusing on yourself in the present and the now. We did an attention exercise, which is like mindful eating. So we had to have a sweet, which they gave us, which was very nice. They brought in a box of celebrations, especially with it being Christmas next week. So yeah, we had a sweet in a wrapper, and we had to use our 5 senses to be mindful about eating it, before we eat it and during it. So yeah, your 5 senses are your sight, smell, touch, hearing and taste. So they had like this worksheet that they read through as we were doing it, and we had to like do it as they were telling us to do it. So it was like, think of the colour of the sweet you are holding and the colour of the wrapper and the shape of it. How does the light hit off it in the shadow? Are there any different colours inside it? What sounds does it make as you move it around? When you do move it around, can you feel the movements in your hands and your fingers and your muscles? How heavy is it? How does it feel when you hold it there? Start to open the wrapper. How does it feel when you're opening it? What muscles are you using when you're opening it? Smell the sweet. What does it smell like? Breathe in deeply, in and out. Think about what the smell is. How do you feel when you smell it? Does anything happen with your body as you smell it? So for me, obviously, it was salivating because I really wanted to eat the chocolate. Take one bite of the sweet, but hold it in your mouth. How does it feel in your mouth? What is it doing? Have a chew, and how does it feel as you chew it? And as it gets ready to swallow, how does your body feel when it needs to swallow? And then when you do swallow, how does it feel as it goes down? Yeah, reading that back, it kind of sounds weird, but you know what I mean, like, and that's just mindful eating. And if your mind starts to wander while you're doing that, bring it back to what you're doing, and that's fine. It's okay for your mind to wander, and it's okay to think about different things, but just gently bring it back to what you're doing and what you can see, what you can smell, what you can feel, what you can taste, and what you can hear. If you want to know more about mindfulness as a whole, there's loads on Google, but I think the pioneer who made it a thing, it's Jon Kabat-Zinn. I'll write that up here, Jon Kabat-Zinn. Mindfulness is just a really interesting way of preventing or helping yourself stay grounded, I guess, and stay in the moment rather than ruminating, worrying, panicking, feeling miserable, feeling sad, and then therefore getting more and more depressed. And so mindfulness is like a way of paying attention in a particular way. So it's like on purpose, it's in the present moment, what's happening right now, and it's like non-judgmental, so you're not like judging what's happening. And you can do this with lots of things. You can do it with walking, you can do it with exercise, you can do it with breathing exercises. You can be mindful about a lot of things that you're doing in that moment. And if you've got like an activity, be aware that you don't necessarily have to finish the whole activity. You don't have to be mindful during the whole thing. You can do something for 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 1 minute, and then come back to it later. There's nothing wrong with feeling like you need to do something else. So they linked it kind of with the trap or track theory, I guess, is it a theory? Thing that we've done in earlier weeks, and how we can use trap or track with regards to mindfulness and activities. So if you think of like a trigger for you and how that would send you off into a way where your mind would wander and start ruminating and start beating yourself up or start worrying or things like that, think of what that trigger was and see if you can set yourself up to a way of being more mindful and to prevent yourself from going into that. So you can pay attention on the things around you. So one of them actually, because one of my triggers for when I start to ruminate and then my mind goes crazy is when I'm in bed trying to sleep, when it's dark, there's no sounds or anything like that. So they said that there was an app, let me tell you the app as well, called Relaxing Melodies to Sleep, and it's just sounds that you can focus on as you're trying to sleep, so your mind doesn't start going into this cycle of ruminating and unhelpful thinking. So yeah, that was super interesting. I really liked learning about this sort of stuff, and I do know that my mind goes off in these different places that are unhelpful thinking patterns, ruminating, worrying, panicking, overthinking, all that sort of stuff. And so it's nice to think of some different strategies I can try to put in place to, if I do go down that, just bring myself back to the present moment. They were saying that being mindful on what you're doing takes a lot of practice. It's really hard, especially when a lot of things are like on autopilot, or when a lot of things are like things you do every single day, like eating. You eat every single day, but how often do you actually sit there and think about what you're eating, what it smells like, what it actually tastes like in depth, what it looks like in depth? An example I can think of that directly affected me was the other day. I had a little bump in the car. It was completely my fault, and it was bumper to bumper traffic, and the cars are fine, people in the cars are fine. It was nothing serious. It was like a tiny little bump, not even a single mark on the car, and that's how little the bump was. But yeah, my mind was just elsewhere, and I was just panicking and worrying about different things that are happening in life and with family and things like that recently. And yeah, my mind just wandered. I wasn't paying attention for a split second, and that gave me like a slap across the face because I realised how serious that could have been. Honestly, I've never felt so terrible in my whole life. I was profusely apologising to the guy in the car. It was a taxi driver, and I'm so lucky that the guy was like the nicest guy ever that I've ever come across. Any other person would have been pretty hot-headed, like what the hell are you doing, you just hit my car kind of thing. But yeah, he was the nicest person ever, and we like exchanged numbers, and he took a photo of my license plate. And again, all day I was like worrying about what was going to happen about that. I was like, oh, is he going to claim on insurance? There's not a mark, but like, is he going to be one of those people? But yeah, later on that day he ended up texting saying that the next time I need a taxi to call him and I can buy him a cheeseburger. But yeah, anyway, I digressed a little bit there. Yeah, and shows how much I'm probably doing this mind wandering, worrying about things, panicking about things, overthinking things that are happening that are perhaps out of my control, and thinking about it over and over again isn't going to help the situation, isn't going to help what's going on. It's just making me more miserable. I'm not a bad driver, don't get me wrong. Do I want to put this on the internet? I'm not a bad driver. It was just like, because the traffic was so slow, we were literally not even moving at all. It was like less than a mile an hour. And I was so close to him because it was bumper to bumper traffic that, yeah, I just didn't pay attention for 1 second as I moved forward that slowly, and I was just thinking about things. My point was meant to be that things like driving, what you do like every single day, and you just do it in autopilot a lot of the time, you just drive because you know how to drive, kind of like riding a bike. Being able to practice mindfulness in those situations rather than letting your mind wander. So yeah, that's what we did with CBT this week. I'm not looking forward to having a 2-week break, but it just so happens that next Tuesday, when it would usually be, is Christmas Day, and then the Tuesday after that, when it would usually be, is New Year's Day. So they're both obviously bank holidays and no one's working that day. So yeah, I'll have my next CBT class, and hopefully I will have been able to practice all of the strategies that they've been giving us over the next 2 weeks. It was week 7 this week, so the second last week of the whole course, and I'm kind of sad that it's going to be ending next week, but also I feel like it's helped me a lot and it's really genuinely made a difference in my life, which I'm really glad about, because I was so nervous about starting at the very start, and it was really daunting, the idea of going to a group course where there's going to be other people and people I don't know. But I feel like it's been better than one-to-one therapy, which I did try a little while ago. So I've got my booklet like I do every single time I talk about it, and I'm going to go through and just talk about the things that we were doing today, just in case it might help someone, or it might help you make the decision to go to CBT yourself, or to seek some kind of support and help. So yeah, let's have a little look. So today's aim was thinking about what happens if we relapse, and how do we maintain being able to act differently when we're feeling low and depressed, if that makes sense. I hope it does. There's probably going to be loads of cuts in this where I'm trying to like figure out what I'm going to say. As you can see, I make loads of notes when I'm there to try and help me understand things a bit better. There were 2 book recommendations today. The first one is called Reasons to Stay Alive by Matt Haig, and the other one is like, she couldn't remember the name, the other member of the group. It was either something like Mindfulness Journal or Mindfulness Journey or something like that, and it was by Women's Health. So I am definitely going to check those out and see what they are like for me. Hopefully I enjoy them. The therapists really reiterated the whole not working to a feeling but working to a plan, because sometimes you might not feel like doing something because you're feeling low and depressed, but in the long term doing something about it makes you feel better, if that makes sense. So for me, it's things like walking, going to the gym, getting up in the morning, like I've discussed in previous weeks, and having that whole, I know doing this will make me feel better even if I don't feel like doing it, and working to a feeling can keep me depressed, and that depression breeds depression. So if you feel low and down and you feel like not doing anything, then not doing anything at that moment doesn't help long term. It actually makes you feel more depressed, and so on. We've kind of done this before in previous weeks. We spoke about how like short-term costs, long-term benefits, rather than short-term rewards and long-term issues with depression. They also said things like when you're doing things, do things with the aim of feeling better rather than waiting until you feel better. So that whole notion of, oh, I'll do it on Monday, or I'll feel better tomorrow, so I'll do it tomorrow, rather than doing it in the moment. So definitely, like, for example, you've got like a pile of dishes to do and you don't feel like doing it in the moment because you're feeling a bit sad, you're feeling a bit miserable, so then you leave it to the next day, and then the dishes have piled up higher, and then it's even worse for you. So the short-term cost there is that you just get them done out of the way even if you don't feel like doing it, but long-term you feel better because then you've got an empty sink and you don't need to think about it, and it doesn't get worse the next time. So yeah, little things like that. I mean, that's a weird analogy because it's dishes, but you know what I mean, like it applies to like everything else. We had to think about what our warning signs could be if we are relapsing. So some of the things they've listed here are, God, my voice was going a bit funny there. Some of the things they've listed here are what events might make you feel vulnerable or low, what might you notice in your body, like physically, what emotions might you experience and how long for, what might you stop doing, what might you start doing, and what would you need to do / remember / say to yourself if you spot the signs. I think the signs for me when I'm starting to plummet back into low mood and depression, I start to not feel like doing things in general. So like if Eric goes, oh, do you want to go to the cinema today, and then I'll be like, oh, I don't feel like it, or do you want to go for a walk today, no, I don't feel like it, that kind of thing. Like, but to everything, to life. Not wanting to go out when I love going out and I love doing things and being active. So me not wanting to go out is like definitely a sign that I'm not feeling myself. I also tend to sleep in a lot, and I find it hard to fall asleep and get up on a morning. So that's another thing that I know definitely is a sign that I'm getting a bit low. And I also ruminate a lot, and I'm very self-critical, so I'll start going over and over and over things in my mind over and over again, no matter what it is, and I start to like say bad things about myself, and like I call myself fat. I say like, oh, my skin's horrible and I feel ugly, I'm disgusting. Like I say all these things about myself when I shouldn't. I should be very positive about myself and the things that I achieve and the things that I can do, that I'm a good person, and I just need to be kinder about myself. So yeah, those are the signs that I'm getting back to the place I was in before. And yeah, so the things that I would do to like counteract those warning signs. So when I'm not feeling like doing things, I need to remember that I need to do things in order to feel better, even if I don't feel like doing it. When I don't want to go out, I need to remember that actually I really enjoy going out, and I always feel better after I've been out doing things. I always feel like I've achieved something, and yeah, I need to remember that and make sure I push myself to go out more. When I'm having troubles with going to sleep and sleeping in, I need to whip myself back into my little routine, because keeping the routine, like a good sleep cycle and a good routine like with an alarm, really helps me with that. So if I start slipping off, I need to really try to get myself up out of bed, even if I don't feel like doing it in the moment. I know that it will help me long term. And when I start ruminating and being self-critical, I need to be kinder to myself. I need to remember that I can't control what other people think, feel and do, but I can control how I feel and what I think. And practice more mindfulness and self-relaxation techniques, and doing things that just kind of take my mind off of things that I might be ruminating, worrying or panicking about, and dealing with any issues that need to be addressed. So sometimes like your worries and panics about things are genuinely things that have to be addressed. You can't just push them aside and forget they're there. So dealing with them in a more organized way, instead of having loads of things circling around my head, maybe it's with a to-do list or planning what I'm going to be doing and not going over and over and over in my head. Make like this plan, right, this is what I'm going to do, that's when I'm going to do it, and that will make it better or help it for me or help how I feel. And then once that's planned, I don't need to think about it around when I need to be doing it, if that makes any sense. We need to remember that the things that we do to make ourselves feel better need to be of value to us, and they need to be like a true reward as well. Like some people enjoy running, I hate running. For a long time I thought about getting back into it like I used to. I used to be a runner like years and years ago, but honestly I just don't enjoy it, and there's no point me doing something with the hopes that it'll make me feel better if I don't even enjoy doing it. So we need to remember which actions we do are of genuine value to us as people. Do things that make us happy. Even if you have this routine that you want to keep up, still be flexible. If your friends want to go out one day and you're thinking in your head, oh, I normally go to the gym this day, if I don't keep in my routine things are going to go bad. No, they're not going to go bad. If there's a day that your friends want to do something and you enjoy spending time with your friends as well, then do it. You don't have to be so strict on yourself all the time. You can be flexible and fluid. And when I am thinking about things I want to do and things that I'm doing in the moment that maybe I'm panicking, worrying, I need to question myself and be like, does this help me? Is what I'm doing right now good for me? And I think that will really help me like feel a bit more grounded and come back to reality. They were talking about mental health checks as well. Like, it's really weird that if there's something physically wrong with us, we go and see a doctor, we go and see like someone who's a specialist in that area maybe, And yeah, we like regularly check ourselves, like, well, you should be anyway. Like, we check our boobs for lumps, we check down below if there's any changes. Like, we're always like thinking about our own physical health, or at least most people are. I am, I know. I get a bit obsessive over my physical health. But like with our mental health, no one ever really like checks on it. If we're feeling sad, it's not very often that you pop to the doctors and tell someone that mentally you're not feeling okay. And often it's really easy to be caught up in day-to-day life and stresses, and you forget to check on yourself regularly. So they were saying that maybe it's even every 4 weeks. Like, they've put a thing at the back, which I'll come to, but it's basically like a relapse plan. And they said, like, even just read through it every 4 weeks and ask yourself some questions like, am I actually okay right now? Am I doing any of my usual behaviors that would happen when I'm depressed? Like, am I doing anything that's on my signs list? And just regularly checking in on yourself. And even if your mental health is good, it's good to have a look and be like, I'm not doing any of my warning signs, I'm in a good place. And then you can feel better as well. You can be like, I'm doing really good, I'm proud of myself, and reward yourself for it. There's no reason why you can't do that. And I really like that idea. I think that's a really good thing to do. We also discussed where we would like to be in 6 months' time, setting ourselves some like realistic, achievable goals, so that in 6 months we can look back and be like how much we've achieved just from being able to better our mood. Like, a lot of the people on the course are off on long-term sick or aren't working at the moment because of their mental health, so quite a few people said they wanted to get back into work or phase back into work, which I think is a great idea. For me, I would like to work on my business more, which I've been doing. I would quite like to actually keep up the gym this time. I always end up fading out of it because of my mood and I just don't feel like going, but because I've been practicing working against how you feel and towards what would work and make you feel better in the long term, I'm feeling a bit more hopeful that I'll be able to keep it up. So I would like to, in 6 months' time, still be attending the gym. I'd also like to keep up regular contact with my friends, even if it's not that much, like once a month or something, because when I'm not feeling myself, I don't talk to people very much. I very much kind of shut off, I mute group chats, I don't go out, I turn things down, and that's not good for me. And I always feel so much better when I've been out with people and when I've been social. I am quite a social person, despite the fact that I have like anxiety and depression. Like, I love going out and doing things, so I want to make sure I keep up regular contact with my friends and keep up a good sleep schedule. So even if it relapses in 6 months' time, I want to think like I've done really well, I've kept up quite a regular sleep schedule. So yeah, that's going to be my plans for the next 6 months. So yeah, the main thing of today was basically planning for relapses, which will happen, and things happen in life that are out of your control. Moods change all the time. It's normal to feel sad, it's normal to feel upset sometimes, and it's just about how we manage our own feelings and how we bring ourselves back to a functioning good life, I guess. I don't know how to word that. I think one of the quotes that one of the therapists said today, let's see, I think it's a really good quote. They said, it's okay to fluctuate moods. If your mood doesn't go up and down, then you're a flat line. You're basically dead with no emotion. And it's normal to feel stressed, worried, anxious, but it's just how much time you spend on those feelings and how much you let it take over your whole life. I worded that one a bit better that time. So yeah, I really liked this week. I think it was helpful. I'll definitely be looking at this again in 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 6 months, looking back at how this course has really made a difference in my life. I am sad that next week is the last week, but yeah, it has been really helpful. I've met some lovely people there. We've exchanged numbers. I think a few of the people are going to be meeting up outside the course, which I think is lovely. I think it's nice that people have made like positive relationships from this. And yeah, oh, quickly, I'll show you the relapse form at the back. So these are the questions that I need to do this for homework. I haven't done it yet, but these are the questions that they're asking. It's what have I learned about depression and behavioural activation, which is the course I've been doing. What changes have I made and what techniques have I found helpful? So some of the things could be the activity diary, goal setting, and the trap or track system thing that we've been doing. What changes in me might signal a relapse, which I've already said before, but I'm going to fill it out again. What would I say to myself to manage mood? How would I say it, and what would I advise myself to do? Often I'm pretty good at advising other people on how to help themselves, but I'm not very good at taking the advice for myself or helping myself. So I need to get better at thinking, what would I tell someone else who's in my situation right now, and then following it basically. What long-term goals do I want to look towards, and what might I need to achieve these? I said them before, but I'll pop them in this sheet for the therapists. And who can I lean on for support? And so they were talking, actually quickly, they were saying like, have yourself like a little flow chart of who, if you're feeling really bad and you need to talk to someone, of who you can talk to. So it could be like a close friend who you really like, who you really trust, and if they're not available, who next? Maybe it's an online charity, or like a phone line charity like Mind. Then after that could be GP, and then medication. Like, have yourself things that you can go to help you, so you don't have everything to deal with yourself, because no one should have to deal with everything by themselves. There's always someone out there to help you, even if it's these charities like Mind, or even if it's your GP or a mental health professional. Always speak to someone. So yeah, week 7 done. I'm definitely feeling much better. I don't know if maybe I'll have to watch all these clips back when I put them together and see if I can notice a change in myself as well, because I do feel so much better, and I'm really grateful that I had the opportunity to go on the course and actually make a difference in my life. So today was the last day or week even of the behavioural activation group CBT that I've been attending every week for a while. So it was week 8, and yeah, it was pretty much just a roundup of everything that we've been learning about and practicing and trying to understand. They went over what behavioural activation even means, and how it's all about reinforced behaviours, positive or negative, and how to change our behaviours in a way that improves our depression and our mood, and how the things that we do to change our mood are meaningful to us and things that we value. And we went over different triggers and consequences, and how in the moment we need to ask ourselves, what is the consequence of me doing this action, and what's the consequence of me doing something else? Maybe it's an alternative behaviour. There was a chance for everyone to ask questions about things that they may not have understood, or things they don't quite remember. So a couple of people wanted to talk about the trap or track, and about how trap is the trigger response avoidance pattern, and how track is the trigger response alternative coping mechanism. And how like we can map that out physically. Don't mind me, I'm just playing with a bobby pin while I talk, otherwise I'm not entirely sure what to do with my hands. And they just went over how like this flow chart way of thinking can help improve how we plan our own behaviours, or how we're going to do things in the future. There was some recommended reading to help us over the next few months with our new, I guess, new way of living, new way of acting and behaving. So they recommended Notes on a Nervous Planet by Matt Haig, and there was some recommended reading that you can apparently find online. One of them was called Overcoming Worry, Overcoming Sleep Problems, and Overcoming Depression. And that there's online self-help. Apparently if you type in CCI, and there's things like what may worry ? That all comes up, so that might be worth looking into. And honestly, that is pretty much what we did in the last week. It was just very much going over everything that we've already talked about in previous weeks, and I feel really sad that it's over. I feel really grateful that I had the chance to meet these people, some really helpful, lovely people on the course who are really kind and have definitely helped me. Like other people in the course, not just the therapist, but other people attending the course there for themselves, have really helped me and changed the way that I think and feel about things. And yeah, I'm really grateful we have NHS provision for mental health like this. I wish there was more funding in it, so there could be more like follow-up care or aftercare, I guess, because it's kind of like you get the 8 weeks and then after that you don't really get anything. Like if you're still feeling extremely low, you might get a phone call just to check in with you. But I wish there could be more like regular stuff that you could get. And I know that if you can afford it, you can pay for a therapist, but they're like 40 quid an hour, and I certainly can't afford that, especially when 40 quid is like a whole week's worth of food. Yeah, it's a shame that that sort of stuff is available to people who can afford it, and the people who maybe are on a low income or no income or things like that, which generally people who struggle with mental health are, because they struggle to get back into work or to do day-to-day things that keep their income coming in. So yeah, that is a shame, but again, it's more than what we have, more here than what other countries have, and I think it's definitely a step in the right direction, and I think there is going to be more funding put into this whole mental health provision. And as far as I'm aware, the group courses are quite new. I think they only just started them in 2018, so yeah, that's a new way of getting the information out there for people who need it quicker, because then it reduces the waiting list times. So yeah, I'm feeling really positive. I feel like I've got a new head on, I guess. Like I've got a new way of thinking to try and help myself in the future. And they did say that if after 6 months from now, like technically I've been discharged, but if after 6 months we're struggling again, or something new comes up, or we're struggling with something else, we can self-refer again and have a phone assessment and go back in and see maybe someone else or have some different kind of treatment. So yeah, I'm really grateful, I'm really happy with how it went. I would definitely 110% recommend this to anyone who is struggling with mental health. They said that there are different courses for different things, so I was on the low mood and depression group. There's ones for generalized anxiety disorder, for worrying, for social anxiety. Yeah, there's loads of different groups. So there could be something there that could help you. Even if you're not interested in group therapy, there is still one-to-one therapy that you can attend, which I have attended before in the past. Or there's online mental health charities. I will leave numbers to loads of different mental health charities down below if you feel like you need to talk to someone. And yeah, I would definitely recommend it. It's most certainly helped me. I feel like I have new skills to help me cope with things better, and I feel more motivated and positive about the future. So thank you to our NHS, and thank you to the therapists that were running the course. They were absolutely lovely. They were so kind and friendly, understanding, but also knowledgeable and helpful. On the way there, I had a Greggs and sat by Earl's Grey Monument, and I just spent a good 15 minutes just people watching, just relaxing before I went in. And I want to do more of this mindfulness more often. That's something I'm going to take away from this course, definitely, is do more of what makes me happy and what I value. Work to a plan, not a feeling. So if I don't feel like doing something, it doesn't necessarily mean that it won't help me. So I'm going to plan things out and try and stick to them. And yeah, depression breeds depression. So if I'm not feeling myself, don't hide away, don't just not do things, don't just stop doing things, because that in the long run, that's not going to help me. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to leave a like down below, and more importantly, I hope you found this video helpful in some kind of way, or useful, or it's helped you want to seek out some kind of support for your mental health, or maybe it's given you some ideas for you to practice at home and see if that helps you. And yeah, I just wanted to make something more accessible rather than having the clips of me talking about it in my vlogs. I know it's a bit long, but I guess if it's something that you're interested in and want to know more about, then you probably will watch it, or maybe you'll watch it in sections or something like that, I don't know. Anyway, yeah, I will leave links to some mental health charities down below. If you feel like you need to talk to someone, please do reach out and talk to someone, seek help, advice and support, because, well, personally for me, I found it so helpful, even though I almost didn't want to admit that I was struggling as much as I was previously. But yeah, if you like this video, don't forget to leave a like down below, subscribe to see more videos like this. I do plan on making more mental health videos over 2019 because it's something that I would like to spread more awareness and understanding on, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!